Hari Om. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Pranamam to all blessed souls. The first two mantras of Isavasyopanishad is said to contain the entire essence of the Upanishads, the essence of the Upanishads. Not only of Isavasyopanishad, but all the Upanishads put together. This is what the rishis have to teach us. These two mantras tell us what should be our attitude towards the created world. The world should be seen as sweet in God. Know this. This is the attitude that we have to have. The second mantra tells us how to act in this world, how to engage ourselves in this world. Act without desire for the results. Act without craving for the results. Act without trying to appropriate the results all for yourself. This is the way we have to engage ourselves in action. These two mantras together tell us how to protect ourselves. Ourselves means how to protect the Atma. The Atma doesn't need any protection. It is not in that sense that this is said, but then we have to live with the knowledge of the Spirit. We have to live with the awareness of the self. How to protect that, how to maintain the awareness of the self, and then ensure that our path along this life is safeguarded so that we ultimately reach moksha. This is the lesson, this is the teaching contained in these two mantras. If we ignore the self, if we stifle the self, then what happens? Sorry. This is what is mentioned in the third mantra. What happens is that we go into demonic worlds. We go into sunless worlds if we ignore the self. The shloka goes like this, the mantra goes like this. Asurya namate loka anthena tamasavrita tamste pretya bhigachanti yeke chatmahano jana. Asurya namate loka. Asurya namate loka. The Rishi warns us about certain worlds which are called Asurya, the world of the demons. And that is described as Anthena tamasavrita. Tamasavrita. It is enveloped, it is shrouded in darkness, enshrouded in darkness. Darkness itself is blinding. But here it is doubly mentioned to give the effect, to make us understand how dark, how sunless, how unenlightened those worlds are. Andhena tamasavrita. Blinded by blinding darkness. It's mentioned doubly so that we do understand the depth of the darkness, the seriousness of the darkness. Now, why is that world mentioned? This is the world to which people who kill their self would go. Tamste pretyabhigachanti ye ke chatmahano jana. Who goes there? The person who kills the self. Ye ke chatmahano jana. All the people who kill the self, ignore the self, stifle the self, take to a living without any awareness of the self, without listening to the promptings of the self. In all these expressions, self starts with capital S, the soul. Those people who ignore the soul, those people who indulge in the luxuries of this world, the sensuous pleasures, and ignore the promptings of the soul, those people, ye ke chatmahano jana atmahana. Who are the people who kill the, who are the people who would go to this demonic world? The people who kill their self. Atmahano jana, what do? Pretyabhigachanti. They, after their physical existence, after their life, that is on death, they go to these worlds. Tamste pretyabhigachanti. Those people go to those asurya namat loka. The worlds called the demonic worlds. They go there. This is the plain meaning. If we go into the meaning and try to analyze it, and also try to find meanings laterally, then we can say that when we say people go there after their death, it need not necessarily refer to the physical death. When we kill the self starting with capital S, when we kill the self, then we are killed. We don't exist. Thereafter, our life is a lifeless existence. And when we become that, we go to these worlds. These worlds are immersed in darkness. They are drowned in darkness. We go there. It can be related to our physical death, in which sense it would mean that after our death, we go there. Births after births, we go to those dark worlds, and once we are taken into the grip of that world, we again are born in those worlds. From birth to birth, we move in the world of darkness. The other meaning is we kill the self, and then our lives become lifeless lives, and then we move to that. We may retain this body here, but then we live in those dark worlds once we desert our self. We should not desert the self. We should not desert self-knowledge, and self-knowledge should not desert us also. For that, we have to adopt a certain style of living which has already been sufficiently explained in the first two mantras. Pretyabhigachanti tan lokan. We go to those worlds. Why is it stressed so much? Why is those worlds delineated with such dark colors? Why is it stressed so much? It is stressed so much because our life is a very, very precious thing. It should not be thrown away for a mere sensual living. In Srimad Bhagavata, it is mentioned that the gods who created, the gods who were responsible for the creation of the universe, they became happy on creating man. There are ever so many other beings which have greater capacities, felicities, than a human being. The Gandharvas, the Apsaras, the celestial beings, and then even in our world, the world that we are familiar with, we see many things, many people, many creatures with greater powers, the power of senses, people, creatures with greater power of sight, visibility, greater audibility, the powers of listening, the powers of hearing, the powers of seeing. We see many creatures. But then the gods were happy when man was created, because man has got the Brahmavaloka Dhishana. That is, man is the only creature which would think of its own source, which is Brahma. Brahmavaloka Dhishana. Man's intellect alone would seek the source of his existence. Man alone will be happy on knowing what exactly is the source of his existence. Man has got a special intellectual power, a special capacity to understand reality. So man's birth, that is the human birth, is a very special thing. Once we get that, we should not throw it off for small, trivial, transient pleasures. This is what is mentioned here. Here again, there is a difference in the interpretation given by Sri Shankaracharya and Sri Aurobindo Ghosh. Sri Shankaracharya and many other acharyas had read the first word of this mantra as Asurya, related to Asuras, demons. We go to demonic worlds. Whereas Sri Aurobindo Ghosh took it as Asurya. There are actually two versions for this word. One is Asurya, the other one is Asurya. Both are accepted by different acharyas and different schools of thought. Both are accepted. When you say Asurya, it would mean the sunless worlds. Again, dark only. In the ultimate sense, it is one and the same. But then Sri Shankaracharya takes it as Asurya, related to demons. Sri Aurobindo Ghosh took it as Asurya, a sunless world. Asurya without Surya, sans Surya, sans sunlight. Into that world we go again and again on our passing, on our death. We go to those worlds, births after births, we go there. This is the second interpretation. Another interpretation, not second, another interpretation. Either way, people like us are benefited by both the senses. It doesn't lead to a confusion. It again takes us to the ultimate truth. The only benefit in knowing this is that two kinds of expressions exist. Two versions exist for this first word, Asurya and Asurya, and it can be interpreted in different ways, but then ultimately the meaning would be the same. This stanza, this mantra is actually telling what will happen to people who are given to a life of ignorance. In that sense, the people who are ignorant are warned. All of us are warned. And ignorance is actually denounced in this stanza, mantra. But then it is an indirect way of praising real knowledge, showing the glory of the real knowledge. And a person who sees truth as truth, how would he take Brahma, truth, ultimate reality? How does a person who is enlightened take it? This is what is mentioned in the fourth mantra. For the time being, let us stop here. Pranamam to all blessed souls. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo